CMON managed to grasp another AAA IP. The legendary Metal Gear Solid will be turned into a miniature board game. There's more than meets the eye. We will brief you on the current Backerkit campaign. Metal Gear Solid is a cooperative espionage dungeon crawler game for 1 to 4 players. In Metal Gear you can play a single shot mission or dive into a 14 mission long campaign. Each mission has a specific setup and uses different rules, map tiles and enemy figures. Players take turns and perform up to 4 actions. Some actions involve the risk of being detected. Once all players finish their turns, the enemy moves and attacks if able. The goal of each mission can be different. In some missions you'll have to face a boss encounter and take up the fight against Ocelot, Liquid Snake or one of the other 4 boss characters. At first glance we thought Metal Gear Solid was another adaptation of Zombicide. The map tiles, the character sheets, the dice and the tokens look somewhat familiar. But in preparation for this video we read the work in progress rulebook and found out that Metal Gear Solid is a different game. And we should have known that Metal Gear Solid is a different game because the game was initially developed by IDW Games back in 2018. They intended to launch a Kickstarter campaign in 2020 but never managed to do so. So Metal Gear Solid is not a Zombicide adaptation, but it does scratch kind of the same itch. If you're looking for a light to medium weight dungeon crawler, Metal Gear Solid can be a game to look into. Especially if you prefer espionage and stealth instead of hack and slash slugfests. The game isn't too rule heavy and it does a nice job of recreating the same atmosphere as in the computer games. Metal Gear is really a trip down memory lane for me. I started playing the game on the NES back in 1988. The compelling storyline and the monumental boss fights really impacted my view on computer games and set a new bar. I will never forget fighting Psycho Mantis on the PS2. But don't let this old dinosaur bore you with ancient history. Let me suffice by saying that the feel of nostalgia got me interested in the board game. So I had high expectations of the Metal Gear Solid board game. I tried to tune down my expectations a couple of notches to give CMON a fair shot on an honest review. It's unreasonable to expect the same cinematic experience that the computer games have to offer. With the adaptation to a board game, some of the Metal Gear spirit will be lost. Well, I won't beat around the bush. CMON has done a decent job with the board game adaptation of Metal Gear Solid. In the core, Metal Gear is a stealth dungeon crawler based on a couple of solid game mechanics with an IP slapped on top of it. Sorry, no pun intended there. The mechanics suit the game and the risk-reward mechanic for the more turn-efficient actions is an addition to the dungeon crawler theme I've not seen that often before. Sorry for being a bit lame, but I don't think CMON will use or quote that they have done a decent job on the Metal Gear board game adaptation. It is obvious nothing that will help them sell the game. But rating the game as decent seems an adequate judgment. This is actually a polite way of pointing out that we will not pre-order this game. In our opinion, Metal Gear Solid isn't a game for the board game enthusiast. It is a game for casual gamers or Metal Gear fans, of course. If it's a dungeon crawler you're looking for, there are other and better options. I will get back to the alternatives on Metal Gear Solid later on this video. The pre-order deal that CMON is offering costs $100. Instead of the usual Kickstarter campaign, CMON ran their pre-order campaign on Backerkit. This is a noteworthy change to the previous campaigns, and I must admit that I overlooked this detail in the first place. I thought the pre-order deal ran on the CMON side, but once you pre-order the game, you're forwarded to the checkout page on Backerkit. So with Metal Gear, CMON has deviated from their standard strategy, giving the impression they are aiming for another audience for the game. And I very much understand the new approach. In the end, Metal Gear Solid is a medium weight and medium quality game with a limited amount of content. We don't think the Kickstarter community had responded very fond of this new campaign. Let's talk value for a bit. Metal Gear Solid costs $100 on the pre-order page. For all newbies who are watching this video, please be aware that the price does not include VAT and shipping. If you add up these additional costs, Metal Gear Solid costs a little less than $200. I think it's too expensive for what's on offer. Sure, I still need to get used to the inflated prices, but $200 for pretty much a core game without any stretch goals seems overambitious. The game offers too little variety. We would have liked to see more playable characters and more different types of patrol units. And at this price point we would expect premium game components instead of the standard punch-out cardboard. CMON can be very persuasive if it comes to exclusives and stretch goals, but the Metal Gear pre-order exclusives have little appeal. A metal miniature and a 109-page comic will not convince players to pick up the game now instead of waiting for retail. Personally, I'm not a big fan of the comic. I do like comics, but I don't think it will help for players immerse themselves into the game. So, is this another CMON hate video? No, not at all. Metal Gear Solid is not a bad game. It's overpriced, but it's decent. We do want to praise CMON for adopting this game. The Metal Gear Solid game was left for dead once ITW games ceased to exist, but CMON was brave enough to bring the game to the board game community. We encourage CMON to further expand their catalog, and they already did in 2022. They crowdfunded the campaign for Doom War of Arrakis, a game that was basically a reskin for War of the Ring. It looks if CMON makes old and unavailable games accessible again for a broad audience, and of course we are in favor of this strategy. But hopefully the next adaptation will be a AAA game again that is playable with 4 players instead of 2. Like War of Arrakis, and is a better game than Metal Gear Solid is now. I promised to get back on alternatives on Metal Gear Solid. There are a lot of dungeon crawlers out there, but if you are looking for a dungeon crawler that requires a stealth approach, you should check out V-commandos. We'll put a link in the description of this video. Well, that's it for now. I hope you liked this video. Please give us a thumbs up or even consider subscribing for the channel. I'll see you in the next video.